What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. At the time of publishing this video, we are 6 hours away from the launch of Elden Ring. I'm super excited for it as I'm sure you are as well. But there's one other little thing that we need to cover, which is a choice that's available to us at character creation, and that is your choice of keepsake that you take in with you. There are 10 options available to you, and I wanted us to run through all 10 and explain a little bit of detail behind all of them, with one caveat that I don't have a review copy of the game, so of course all of the information that I'm going to share with you is gleaned from the internet. And specifically when it comes to two of the keepsakes, it's entirely possible that they might have additional uses later on in the game, and that information just simply isn't available, to me right now. However, when we look at it here, we can see the list of 10 keepsakes that are available there, and without any further ado, we'll jump right in on the first one, which is none. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. It means that you forego the chance of taking in any of these keepsakes, and so this is obviously if you don't want to have any kind of advantage starting out, so you can simply just not take anything in with you. The second option we have available is a Crimson Amber Medallion. Now this is a item that you can wear that increases your HP or your HP bar in the game, which means you can take more damage. And it's entirely possible that later on in the game you're going to be able to pick up additional items like this or this very item, and you could potentially also stack equipment that give you more HP, but this is a boost at the beginning to your HP bar, which will allow you to take more damage. Then when we go over to the third item, this is Lands Between Rune. Now runes are the currency in the game. They are used to not only level you up but also to buy items from shops and vendors. So the main thing is that this starts you off with something that you can consume and gives you a little clutch of these runes, this currency that you can essentially use at the start of the game. Next one up, the fourth item is a golden seed. Now this game uses a flask system, so those of you that are familiar with the sort of From Software recipe, you essentially carry an item with you that you can use to restore HP to your character, and through using golden seeds you can upgrade the amounts of times that you can use this flask. So this right off the bat gives you one additional upgrade, aka one additional use to this flask. This is a pretty powerful upgrade because the point is you can always reuse this flask, so every time you go to a camp and you rest, your flask refills, and this gives you another use of that flask. So super cool. Next one, the fifth item, we have the Fanged Imp Ashes. Now ashes are of course the summoning system in this game. There are tons of summons in it where you can summon wolves and knights and mages and archers and whatever. This gives you a summon right off the bat, a Fanged Imp. This is really powerful because these can often distract the aggro off of you, from enemies, so that enemies rather attack the summon that you have, plus it's additional DPS for you. So again, just a very powerful keepsake or starting item to take in with you. The next one on the list is Cracked Pot, or a Cracked Pot. Now in the game you have these potions, or I don't want to say flasks because I don't want to confuse them with the flask that you use to heal yourself, but you essentially can make these pots and you can fill them with different materials, and you can turn them into bombs or different elemental effects, anything like that. And each one of these pots gives you the ability to craft one of these, and these are reusable, so you can throw them and then essentially you can refill it again with another element. So this means that you have another one of those available to you, or a one available to you right from the beginning of the game, which is definitely very useful because certainly there will be some hunting for these cracked pots in the open world, so that you can have a certain amount of these available that you can essentially use on enemies to give yourself an edge. Next one we have is a Stonesword key. Now in the game itself, certain bosses, certain dungeons and certain treasure will be hidden behind what they call imp gargoyle locks. So certainly there'll be a huge emphasis on hunting the open world for these kinds of keys, because these keys allow you to open those locks and, like I said, get access to those aforementioned things. So this will again allow you to have one of those keys in arrears of. Sure, there'll be many more of these keys out in the game, but this means the first one of these things that you come across, you will have a key to be able to open it up. The next one is the Bewitching branch. Now this is one of the first ones where there are two items in this list where I'm not entirely sure what they do. There is some information available about it on the game, in the game, or on the internet rather, but at the moment right now it seems like the Bewitching branch is actually going to allow you to basically turn invisible for a short while, or at least drop aggro from you for a short while. So this definitely does seem extremely useful, especially out in the open world. If you accidentally draw aggro from a bunch of enemies, you could potentially use this to escape them. I don't know if this translates to PvP, because if it does translate to PvP, of course, that would make this super OP. Although I doubt that. The bottom line is, generally speaking, these starting items are usually, in certain cases, good, but they're not like game-breaking good, like, for instance, something that would essentially allow you to turn invisible in PvP. But nonetheless, that's what we know about the Bewitching branch at this moment in time. Next up, we have boiled prawn. Now, this is essentially like food in the game. So this is a one-use item that you can use to restore HP to you. So you have the flasks which reduce, not reduce, but which give you HP. So a boiled prawn is a food item that you can consume that also gives you HP. So this gives you another source of health regen in a boss fight, anything like that. But it is one use only, and then it's gone. So it's basically just a little get out of jail free card in case your flask is empty, something like that. And then last but not least, we have Shabriri. I said this a whole bunch of times while I was prepping for the video. Shabriri's woe. So this is another one. This is the second item that is not entirely clear about it right now. Basically, what the description of this item is that it increases the buildup of madness status effect on enemies. Now, as far as I can tell, the madness status effect on enemies basically means that if you're fighting like 3 or 4 enemies and you're able to make one of those 3 or 4 enemies, you know, have the madness status effect, that enemy will then turn and attack its allies, or basically anyone. It essentially then in a way becomes on your side. I'm sure that it'll still attack you as well, but the bottom line is then you have like a kind of like an ally in the fight that will actually turn on its co-conspirators, its co-enemies. So that's the description that's available for it right now. But something that is interesting to me about it is that it says that it increases the madness status effect build-up. So of course there are going to be weapons in the game, maybe arrows, maybe spells that allow you to cast or put this effect on an enemy. And this, because it mentions build up, means that sometimes you'll have enemies that are, let's say, slightly resistant to it, and so you'll have to hit them a couple of times. And so it seems like this item will then in actual fact increase the build up rate, the build up speed in which you can do it. So maybe I'm just spitballing here, but let's say for instance you had a bow that had arrows, and these arrows cause madness, and so you would have to shoot an enemy 4 times to get it to get the madness status effect and turn on its buddies. Now maybe you would have to only shoot it 2 times, you know, something like that. So knowing all of this, it means that we can create a little table and we can separate these 10 items into 2 categories. We'll call them beginner friendly and we'll call them experienced player. And so the general gist here is the 3 items which are listed on a beginner friendly is probably a good choice if this is your first From Software game, if this is your first game like this, or if you want to have an easier time at the beginning of the game. This is of course the increased HP that you get from the Crimson Amber Medallion, the increased use in the flask from the Golden Seed, and the summon that you get from the Fanged Imp. Now, the reason why I have all of the other ones in the experience is, of course, none I think is pretty self-explanatory. The runes can be a beginner friendly and a experienced player item. The issue is that if you, for instance, use this item and then die before spending the runes, you've lost those runes unless you recover your body. So that's something that you have to bear in mind. And it's entirely likely that we don't know how many runes this is. So is it enough for a level up? Is it enough for 5 levels up? Is it enough to buy a whole bunch of items? So it's not clear how many runes we actually get from this item. And for example, if it's just 1 level up, it really isn't that powerful at all. Then the cracked pot, again, at the beginning, you're probably not going to be able to craft any of these pots. So you'll have this empty pot or this cracked pot, but you'll have nothing to put into it to actually use as a grenade or use as an item. So it will only become more usable later on. The Stonesword key, again, we don't know when you'll be able to open one of these locks. So it could be in the very first dungeon, which means this is a really, really cool item because maybe you get a great weapon or some spell or treasure right off the bat right there. But this is not clear to us, so definitely for experienced players. And then the last 3 I think are also kind of self-explanatory. The Bewitching branch, we don't really know exactly how this works right now, so it could be a very powerful beginner tool which allows you to just fade out of combat every time you want to use it. It could be a once-off use thing, which is a big problem because then it means that you have to wait for the exact perfect time to get this invisibility effect, and then, you know, it's gone forever. The boiled prawn is a once-off use HP item, so it's kind of like almost in a way the weakest one out of this list for me, next to none. And then last but not least, Shabriri's woe. Again, we don't know about this madness buildup. We don't know if this item itself actually causes madness through all of your attacks or anything like that. So really the sky is the limit to what these can do. But this list as it stands right here on the screen right now is what I would imagine you to consider when you pick between your 10 keepsakes, and whether you're a beginner or you want some additional challenge, or just in general you wanted to know a little bit more about these. I hope this information helps you. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. Let me know in the comments down below what you're most excited for about this game, and go ahead and let me know what your keepsake choice is and why you're picking that. I love to hear what you guys' thoughts are and your reasons for picking these items. But most importantly, just have a fantastic morning, a great afternoon, and a super awesome evening, and enjoy the fucking launch of Elden Ring. I will see you next video. Fucking cheers.
They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now.